I do love great food and wine, and I've tasted so many great things. I tasted my way through Bordeaux and Burgundy, and the nature of Champenois produced wine is such that you just can't consume a lot of it. A large portion of the population doesn't do well with champagne in the heat and sunlight. You want to have something that finishes clean in your mouth, that you feel like, wow, that was just so nice. I want another sip. Tonight I'm actually feeling a Pittsburgh style steak, something seared on the outside. I haven't had good red meat in about a week, and we just got some A5 Wagyu at the restaurant. And I'm definitely having a glass of Aphrodise, no word of a lie. So.
Welcome back to Flavor Report. My name is Joe Winger. Today we are having a delicious conversation about a brand new sparkling rosé called Aphrodise. Wait until you hear about this. We're talking with Frank Schilling, the co-founder of Aphrodise. Learn more at drinkaphrodise.com. With that said, Frank, thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe.
My pleasure. You've done a lot of amazing things. I hope it's okay if we touch on a couple of them in today's conversation.
And of course, and that's deeply flattering. I don't take compliments super well. Like, I'm one of those guys that, is like, it's very nice to hear it all replayed, and it does sound pretty fantastic at times. When you say all the stuff that every now and then you touch on something, and you're like, well, I did that, but I'll roll with it. You can ask anything.
Thank you very much. So our audience is foodies. We're wine lovers. What's the most important message today you want to share with an audience of foodies and wine lovers?
Wow. Well, I'm an Epicurean myself, not in a aesthete, so to speak. I don't get all uppity about I don't have a lot of pretense around my love of food and wine, but I do love great food and wine, and I've tasted so many great things. I'm a character who hasn't had a meal at home in 22 years. So I'm an internet entrepreneur, and I used to work, literally 7 days a week for many years, and eating out was sort of my escape from my work, because it's the one place my laptop and phone couldn't really rule the day, or the moment. And so for me, eating out was like that escape and that vacation of the moment. And so I created a life around dining out, probably like many of your listeners or viewers. And so I have a deep well of respect for great food and wine, and also for the people who admire it and chase it. It's one of the great things in life. I'm always stunned by people who don't truly love food. I feel like they're missing something and leaving part of life on the table, so to speak.
Outstanding. So speaking of that background, you have this new discovery. Let's talk a little bit about Aphrodise. Tell me about how you discovered the grape varietal and what inspired you to want to make it happen.
Yeah, well, so funny story. I love great wine. I tasted my way through Bordeaux and Burgundy, and after they say that all great wine journeys begin in Pinot Grigio, usually in a hot tub through a straw with friends, and end in Bordeaux is the saying, And I believe that, that's sort of how my journey through wine began. And all the way through, I could never really tell, Merlot from a Cab. I'd be lying to you if I said I knew what a Nebbiolo or a Valpolicella was, and how all those grapes differed from each other. I do enjoy great brands of wine, and I do understand the difference between years and what impacts a year. But when we were I was building it was COVID, and I was building a really big restaurant. And I realized, I just did some fingertip math, and I realized we're going to have to start bringing over a lot of sparkling for mimosas and for brunch. And, it was a 300-seat restaurant, 2 seating, 600 seats on a brunch. And you start to do the math, and you realize, wow, 52 weekends a year, bottomless mimosas. I'm going to need about 3,000 bottles of wine per quarter, or of champagne. So let's go out and get some, just so we have, because we live on an island, and just in time supply chain management wasn't really an option. So we started to taste through different varieties of champagne, and I came to sort of discover what Tom Cruise did in Cocktail, which is, champagne is like perfume going down, but like sewage on the way back. It's like I think the quote. If you can Google the quote, it's real, and it comes from a well-meant place, not mean-spirited towards the great region of Champagne, but it's just that the nature of Champenois produced wine and that grape, that Chardonnay grape that makes a beautiful champagne, is such that you just can't consume a lot of it in the heat or in humidity in the sun. It just isn't the type of forgiving libation that lets you function afterwards. You don't feel good. The yeast isn't good for a lot of people. Not everybody's impacted the same way, but without getting too specific, a large portion of the population doesn't do well with champagne in the heat and sunlight and as a day drink, for a long period of time. Or certainly the recovery profile isn't something that people look forward to, let's say, put it tactfully. Mm-hmm. And so I discovered that, and I'd had that problem myself for years. The yeast wasn't working for me. And so when I discovered Aphrodise, it was like a grape varietal called Xenomavro, which is a high altitude, which I came to learn is a high altitude grape produced not in very large quantities, but it's one of Greece's, they call it Greece's most noble grape. It's a grape that was reserved for people of importance, meaning, we don't want everybody to have this stuff. It's pretty good. Let's not let the word out, and that's sort of, a 1700s version of a noble grape. It's like, we better not tell the hoi polloi about all this really good stuff. Let's keep it all for ourselves. We'll call it noble. And anyway, so that and the reason it's noble is just that it's a very, very forgiving drink, meaning in a sparkling format, it's something you can drink in the heat. It's something you can drink in larger quantities. And while not empirically validated, I can tell you that the recovery profile, for me anyway, and for many others, is exceptionally good, meaning you drink a lot of it and bounce back and go again. And as a wine producer, that's music to your ears, I can sell more of it, but it's also nice putting my pants on one leg at a time in the morning, knowing I'm making people feel better. I'm not putting something in the market that's going to make you feel sick after overconsumption. And I mean, overconsume anything and you probably won't feel 100%, but I had 2 bottles and I went jogging the next day and I was like, wow, that's not possible if I'm drinking champagne,
That's a really good point. We're talking with Frank Schilling with Aphrodise. Just to give a little backstory to who Frank is, Frank, I hope you'll talk to us a little bit about, I'm sure many, many years ago, maybe one of your first adventures back, you mentioned you're an internet entrepreneur. You had some success with website domains. Can you explain a little bit about that and maybe a lesson you learned from that journey?
Yeah, and I'm sure, it's a lesson that some of your listeners, viewers will probably have some experience with. I registered a domain name back in the .com era. Then I registered 2 and 10, and I got some generic names like wine.com or cars.com, names like those. And I started to realize, wow, these names, have value. And I wound up in a trail where I wound up registering a lot of generic names. And then I had difficulty managing them because in those early days of the internet, it was all very unwieldy, the infrastructure for managing those names. So I created a lot of that management infrastructure, and then in the process, grew that business over a 20-year horizon, and then wound up selling the 3 companies that comprised that enterprise to a company called GoDaddy, which we probably all heard of. So, some of their infrastructure is now was my infrastructure and is now their infrastructure. And so to the extent you like the new GoDaddy offering for managing domain names, you're welcome for the small part I played in helping that become a reality.
Yeah, sorry. Good.
Yeah, and then in any event, at the beginning of COVID, I sold those businesses, and then decided that my love of food was such that if I was going to stay in the Cayman Islands, in the old days I was traveling a lot. I had an office in Manchester in the United Kingdom, one in Newport Beach in California, and my main office here in the Cayman Islands. And then and I would travel between the offices and New York and Miami and many other cities, just for work all around the world. And then when I sold the business, that all came to a grinding halt, and I realized I'm gonna have to eat at home more. And I realized, wow, the offering of restaurants wasn't so, the breadth and depth of the offering wasn't what I was hoping for here. And so I built the restaurant as a result of that, that then led to Aphrodise.
I love the full circle of it. Since we mentioned the restaurant once or twice, can we hear more? Let's hear a bit more. I know it's in the Grand Cayman Islands, but Mykonos Steak Club. Tell us the background. Tell us your amazing story, because I've read about it. But tell us how you found it, what you've made out of it, and where we are today with it.
Sure. It was like during COVID lockdowns, there was a new plaza going in on the beach, and I'd kind of mentally designed a restaurant years ago, but sold the real estate for it. And so when I saw the plaza going up, I was like crestfallen. I was like, wow, these guys built my dream on their land, like out of my fantasy of what a place would look like. But then I was, happy to learn that the plaza was a strata titled affair. It wasn't like owned by one conglomerate. So I bought into that plaza so I could control the real estate. And then once I had the real estate, I did a sort of money, no object fit out that left a very residential looking restaurant that it really is quite beautiful. It's called Mykonos after, I had an ex-girlfriend who was Greek, and we had a son named Zeus. And I wanted to sort of, I love the culture of Greece, and I love the idea of the long lunch and the lack of pretense in the party, and all welcoming, with children. Grown-ups will dance on the table and get like really carried away, and even a little bit louche. But the kids are running around, and it's all very loving and family oriented. Whereas sort of, Ibiza is a little more drug fueled and party ragey, and you know what I mean, a little angrier, not angrier, but you know what I mean, a little more intense. And I love the soulful day party of Greece, and I wanted to we're on an island and the Greeks are on islands, so I kind of thought how nice it would be to kind of bring some of that to my very stead and reserved island here in Grand Cayman. Grand Cayman, more of a place you quietly go to escape and enjoy the beach and family. It's not really like a St. Bart's where you go to seek out a great party. And I was always, I'd hoped that there'd be room for at least one place like they have in St. Bart's here. So I built a really big place, sort of 320 seats, super residential, relaxed, welcoming, but completely devoid of pretense. You can come in, flip-flops and shorts, or you can come in a beautiful gown as we'd hope in the evening. But we're not, we don't have a lot of structure and posture around it. We wanted it to be, you feel free, you know what I mean, when you come. And so that I built that venue here, and you can see it online. I mean, it's called Mykonos, or Mykonos Cayman. You can see we have a pretty decent Instagram footprint in the meantime, where people can learn about the restaurant and certainly when you come, please come for a glass of Aphrodise on me. As I mentioned, Frank said I could have a glass of Aphrodise.
I love it. Now, my understanding is you introduced Aphrodise at the Vegas wedding show, and it went incredibly well. So from your point of view, why do you think Aphrodise is the best drink to have at a wedding?
Well, it's the color of love. It's a beautiful color of red. And we took it to the wedding show because I thought that wedding planners would sort of share the same pain point that I discovered as a restaurateur, which is, you want to buy a bottle of champagne, of great champagne, easy. You go to the liquor store. You want to buy a case or 10 cases or even 50 cases, no problem. But when you start getting up there and you need 100 cases for an event or a series of events, getting that quantity consistently and getting good product is actually quite difficult, and expensive. You can go to Total Wines, even a big distributor, and get 40 cases or something, but then it starts to get thin, oh, we'll have to bring this from another shop, or, so if you really want to get large quantities. So we thought we'd introduce Aphrodise, knowing that we could go directly to the wedding planners and help their fulfillment and execution, and deliver, frankly, a better product, something that people could really lavish in the heat, or at an after party where you're really, really pounding, let's say enjoying the bubbly, and then feel better in the morning. And that was really the goal. I've had too much. My first champagne experience was at a wedding, and I drank a little too much, and I didn't drink that much. But the next day or 2 days, I was like, I was laid up, So it's that, you want to try to bring something to market that is good for people, or at least makes them feel, good in the moment and helps them, recover. And so anyway, I thought that would be a good venue. And we had a line all day. Like I poured 5,000 servings of Aphrodise that day. And let me tell you, that's a lot of work. Opening bottles, it looks very glamorous. Oh, we're popping these bottles, but when you're really going at velocity, I mean, it was, my hands hurt at the end of the day. I couldn't even, it was like, we opened so much champagne. Our bartenders were literally they were just standing here like this. I would literally take the empty and put the bottle in their hand. They would just pour. And so it was really quite an experience. And people loved it. It was really nice. So it was a great experience. We got a lot of upstart business out of that. People were like, wow, this stuff is actually quite good. And it was the second day people. It was like, wow, I drank way too much of this yesterday and I'm back for more. And I was like, yes, I knew I was right. It was like one of those, it was like, it was a nice moment,
So let's continue on that conversation for a second. We're here with Frank Schilling from Aphrodise. When we talk about flavor profile, one, when you're at a show like that, pouring out 5,000 samples, what's the most common feedback we get about the flavor? And then secondly, let's talk about the taste profile itself, whether it's the aroma, the mouthfeel. When we're tasting this, what are we experiencing?
Yeah, great question. So when you sip a drink and you talk about mouthfeel, what you're really saying is, and we've all had it, or we have a glass of wine or champagne, and you have a sip, and you get that there's a little bit of a yeasty, gamey aftertaste. Some people, in red wine, it can be somewhat desirable to have that. If you're having a steak, you like that little bit of a peaty kind of finish, and that comes from the ground and the soil. And it stays with the grape, and in the champagne, unfortunately, it stays with it as well. I say unfortunately because it's nice when you're having a steak to have that taste of the earth to go with your food, and it just brings the whole thing, makes you feel cozy. When you're having champagne, which is more of a celebratory libation, that's not a desirable quality. You want to have something that finishes clean in your mouth, that you feel like, wow, that was just so nice. I want another sip, and then that comes with the byproduct of having to recover from it. You have to recover from it at some point. If you have lots and lots of sips, you're going to get drunk or good buzz. You want to be able to recover quickly and elegantly without that hangover, that headache, that feeling that comes from, again, the yeast and all those little elements that make it so that bring its flavor to the front, come on the end as well. So the taste though of Aphrodite is it is a very clean mouthfeel, and it finishes with a light crisp apple or cherry. Some people taste strawberry. I don't taste strawberry, and I don't care for strawberry myself, to be honest with you. But it's not like really fruit laden. I wouldn't say it just has those. A good wine will remind you of it. It won't be like, wow, I just had cherry, or wow, I just had apple. It'll be like, oh, that was just so nice, and it reminds me of a little bit of, I think I taste cherry. That's where that kind of talk comes from. It should be something that's at a higher level that just kind of existentially reminds you, not so much that it's like, yep, that's cherry juice, on the nose, you know what I mean, where you drink it. So Aphrodite has that nice finish of a cherry or an apple, depending on your taste buds. That's what you should taste. And again, it's a small bubble, very light Charmat, produced in small vats, produced a naturally produced bubbly effect. It lives in the tank for 3 months and it gains its bubbly in a natural way. A little more expensive to produce that way. Prosecco, for example, will carbonate. They'll add carbonation just like you would to a can of soda. We don't carbonate. We allow the bubbly to form naturally through the fermentation process, which is how it should be.
Outstanding. Now you've mentioned, I was going to go to food and we'll get there in a second, but you just mentioned the wine making process for this. Is there any special style behind the Aphrodite style of how it's produced?
So the grain, it is a Charmat method. Small vats is one, and the grape varietal, does a lot of the talking, and walking. here. There's again, I'm not big on grape. I can't tell you a this from a that, but I know that Zino Mavro is special in the sense that you can consume it and insert, Zino Mavro it's a very dark grape. It's traditionally produced as a red wine. We're in the process of making a white bubbly Zino Mavro, which is, a little more challenging to make. And we want to bring that to the market. Very clean finish, very, 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 very inert, very lovely to consume. You can just really get into it. And so that grape does the talking, so more than the production technique, Joe.
Love that. Love that. So one of the beautiful things when we talk about flavor and taste is obviously you love wine, you own restaurants, and you've been an Epicurean most of your adult life, if not your full life. So
I have.
When it comes to food and wine pairing, what do you think for you, what would be your favorite dish to pair with a glass or even a bottle of Aphrodise?
So that's a great question. I mean, and I'm going to say this straight up honest. I know, we must be living in a simulation when I tell you this. And it's absolutely true. It's not marketing. Aphrodise is literally the only thing that I drink, and I'm crestfallen when I can't find it. So when I'm out for dinner and I'm like, they don't have a bottle of Aphrodise, I'm like, yeah, I'm a little bit down on the frown. It goes well with meats. It's a dark rosé. It goes nicely with meat. It's not like like a red wine with a burger or with a steak, or a fish or a chicken. It really does go well with those. And it's also a great dessert drink. I like Aphrodite as a warm-up libation and as an after dinner, like sort of celebratory. If you're having a party or something like that, and there's an after party, I'm having Aphrodite for sure, without question. So it's my go-to libation. I mean that. I thoroughly enjoy drinking it. And I am sad when it's not available. So
I can, I haven't tasted it yet, but as I hear you talking about it, I can understand why. As we're wrapping up, you've done a lot in your life. You've had a lot of adventures, a lot of successes, and some lessons in failure, or lessons in stumbles. I'm not sure the right word. Any inspiration or lessons you can share with the audience as far as how you live the Aphrodite life and just how you've built the life that you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is love for people and love for living your best life, love for conviviality. I have a lot of love for the people that I encounter that have helped me in my journey, and those who've just been a part of my, there for a season or there for a reason, as the saying goes. I try to embrace everybody and see the good in everybody. There are other people, obviously, there are people you click with more than other people. But that said, I have a, sort of a bit of a yes man. I say yes to everything unless it hurts me. And I have a real lust for life and a good energy level. I don't know why that is. I have a natural energy that tries to propel me forward, and that we all have. But, I think, love for life and love for people is really important when you, in your journeys. I mean, that's the thing, I like best about the Aphrodite business. There are many things you could do for money, and it'll be a long while till I get rich from Aphrodite, if I were to have to get rich from Aphrodite, so to speak. But it's so rewarding when you see people's face light up. When I come into the room with a magnum of Aphrodite and people know what it is, and I see their face light up and they're like happy because they know I can't just get this anymore, and I know what it tastes like, and I know how I'm going to feel tomorrow. And it just makes me feel so good. I have friends that are like, reach out to me and go, that stuff was so good. When are you coming to town again? Because they know I'm going to bring a bottle of Aphrodite, I'm going to have a bottle in each hand when we go to dinner. And he's like, that makes me happy, that makes me feel good inside about myself and about what I do every day. So if I can keep that feeling going, that's worth it. I mean, that's the truth, kind of.
I love that. We're talking with Frank Schilling. The drink is called Aphrodite, the bottle, available everywhere, hopefully, certainly online.
Online, we're still trying to nail down major distribution. We spend, we're a small team. We're about 6 people in the organization, 6 full-time people, including myself, full-time in the organization, actually accounting still, and so maybe 7 or 8. But I guess the point is, that's a small team in the liquor business. We're single variety, like maybe three size formats in each, the 187s, the small bottles, the 750s and the liter and a half rather. So in standard formats, that's 6 total SKUs. I mean, it's hard getting distribution, but we hope to be, with we have major distribution points, like venues that are discovering the product saying, I want to have this. For example, the UBS Arena in New York is going to be taking it and having it at the bar. They discovered it and love it. We're working with Hard Rock to fulfill some of their restaurants in their different locations. So things like that it's like where people are serendipitously discovering the product and then telling their distributors we want it. But we're kind of a new brand. We're, getting those big distributors' attention is a difficult thing when you're starting. But we're comfortable where it's nice because we're not growing too fast, but every day the phone is ringing and people are like, that stuff, I'd like to buy that. And we're getting orders, but you can buy online through drinkaphrodise.com. We will ship anywhere in those states that allow it. We have I think there are 4 states that don't allow online shipping. Pennsylvania, Arkansas, Alabama, and one more. And Utah. Wow. I think so. Everywhere else we can ship. So you can order online.
We're talking with Frank Schilling. The bottle is Aphrodise. What we didn't know about Frank, if you're loving his energy and his positivity, I've got one more thing to talk with him about that you're going to love, which is you wrote an amazing book. Would you mind giving us the summary of the book and what it was like writing it?
Yeah, so it's called Omnia Vincit, and the universe wants you to win is the subtitle. And it really just touches on some of my, I wrote the book as I'd sold my business or businesses. And it was a friend of mine, it was COVID lockdowns and everybody was like, the end of the world mood type thing going on at that time. And my friend was telling me, here's the book, Gabby handed it to me. And it's a lovely, you write a book like this really for your grandchildren. So if you have a grandchild that one day wants to know more about grandpa and where did our success come from, or where did our financial wealth come from, it's nice for them to know a little about the person who tried hard, and maybe you can see something in yourself from them. And so I really wrote it for my future ancestors so they could have something to harken back on, less than a sort of self-aggrandizing kind of, as I told you offline in the beginning, I don't want to be the guy in the flesh-colored microphone at a TED Talk talking about my book. I want to be the guy who left something for the grandkids and great grandkids to understand a little about my brain, and it's really just written in short micro chapters and vignettes about easy bite-sized morsels of things that you probably know inherently, Joe. You probably get nothing from this book, as you've already won it in your own way. You know what I mean? It's for people that maybe want to look at life through a different optic, and how everything works to your advantage if you let it. It's maybe a nice little synopsis. There's the Cliff's Notes.
I love it. I love it. Final 2 questions here, because I know I want to respect your time. Because you're an Epicurean, because you love food, give us all, if you were going to have any plate for dinner tonight, what would it be and why?
Depends on the night. Tonight I'm actually feeling a Pittsburgh style steak, something seared on the outside. I haven't had good red meat in about a week, and we just got some A5 Wagyu at the restaurant. And those first cuts, if they're cut right, our chef is a butcher. So if they're cut right, and he's also a certified Angus ambassador, so he gets just great cuts. And I know we got it in, so I would like some Pittsburgh style on the outside, or we do a beautiful short rib burger, which is really, really lean short rib. Again, on the outside with a bit of a char finish, and we have a charcoal grill inside the restaurant, which is beautiful. So tonight I'm feeling that, but I do like, I eat a lot of fish. And I'm definitely having a glass of Aphrodise, no word of a lie. So, and I'm actually looking forward to that. My mouth is watering now. So,
Frank Schilling, the bottle is called Aphrodise. Thank you so much for your time. One last try. If someone's listening and watching this and they want to hear more, what are the best ways to find and follow websites, social media for Aphrodise?
You can follow us at Drink Aphrodise on Instagram. where we have a growing profile and footprint. And visit the website, drinkaphrodise.com. It's really quite easy to Google. We Google well under, even if you typo it and just type in Aphrodise, bubbly or wine or champagne, we'll come up thick and wide in Google, not by design, just by accident. Again, it's indexing well and people are searching for it. So it's ranking well under its namesake.